So when these things happen, I get so many phone calls and so many text messages saying, what are we doing? So I'm in law enforcement in Cleveland, Ohio. And one of the things that continues to frustrate me is when we talk about police reform and what does that really look like and how do we become effective in reforming the police. So you can't get the right behavior from the wrong people. And an agency cannot outperform the quality of its people. And those quotes come from Dr. Patrick Oliver, who is over the criminal justice program at Cedarville University, and I've taken classes from him and sat in his workshops, and that's the bottom line. When we were looking for a new entry-level exam, and we had respondents, different agencies who perform the initial testing for police, one of the respondents gave us a statistic that was startling but understandable. And they said, although sociopaths only make up 8% of the general population, they make up 40% of law enforcement. It's because that type of personality is drawn to a profession that has dominion over others or lords over others. It likes to control others. The other problematic issue is that they are without conscience. So when we continue to believe that we're going to shame a profession into improving, deaf ears. So it is obscene and startling that it is 40%, but at least the 40% isn't the majority. But 40% can and has done a great deal of damage. When I saw the video of the incident in Minneapolis, and then I listened to someone come on and speak about how they had convened a working group and came up with a document that had 33 recommendations. Those recommendations were great. The least of those recommendations, the smallest part of that document, was recruitment and hiring. And this is where our problem lies. Currently, our initial problem lies in the fact that we talk about policing in America evolving out of slave patrols. What we don't talk about is the history of policing and fire. The fire department in America being born in New York with Tammany Hall and Boss Tweed. It was a profession where you bought your way onto the profession. Corruption at its very core. That is the history that we must address and face to change it. True history of policing, born out of corruption. The type of personality drawn to policing that make it through our screening processes. Right? And a true intent to make a change. That's what it's going to take. We also need to have the conversation regarding true, robust, and effective psychological screening. And also the implementation of the developments in interviewing. There is the interviewing technique of behavioral-based interviewing. It's a much more effective form of interviewing than any other. If the folks who are interviewing these potential recruits are not trained and are not using the most developed techniques in hiring, what are we doing? So unless and until an agency places those issues on the forefront, we're going to keep getting what we're getting. We have sat in many trainings and seminars here lately. One webinar we sat in called Humanizing Policing. We have to behave as though we're humans. If we behave as though we're humans, the community sees us as human. When we don't, this happens. We also have to address how we're drawing people to the profession. You look at recruitment videos for police agencies across the nation, you see what's highlighted. It begins with SWAT, the middle of the video is SWAT, the end of video is SWAT. SWAT is the least of what we do. It's the least of what we do. We call it running and gunning. If your recruitment videos are showing your SWAT team in the forefront, showing officers having dogs chase after people, who do you think you're going to attract? This is ridiculous. We are leading with the least of what we do, and then we wonder why we get folks who look into crackheads. This isn't rocket science. It's a matter of whether or not you have the intention to do differently. Do you have the willingness? We keep having these commissions on law enforcement. We had one back, the Kerner Commission, over 50 years ago now. Their findings were not much different than the ones from Obama's 21st Century Task Force. All right? It's not about a matter of what, it's a willingness to do it. So you don't have to go very far to figure this out. And unless and until those are the main charges for an agency in change, we're going to keep getting what we get, because you can train somebody all day long. If they don't have a space to put that training, or they pretty much not even trying to hear it, it's not going to change. So we have to flip the focus. It has to be at the front door. Who's getting in and who's getting on? Because you can train someone all day long who's not trying to hear it. And the other thing is, on top of Tammany Hall, we know the FBI has files that extremist groups infiltrated, intentionally recruited their members to join the military and law enforcement. What happened with that? We just let that go. Like, oh, okay. Show me any agency that integrated that information and created a plan to address it. You have the Plainview Project that came out that showed all these officers with their racist and misogynistic and, communication with one another. And then what happened? Did any agency, now you did have a couple agencies that fired officers over it, but knowing if your agency wasn't on that list or in that article, you still had to understand or believe, man, that's here too. That has to be in my agency too. What agencies other than those that were highlighted that removed officers made any plan to address or to seek out or to investigate their officers regarding that? After Ferguson, you had the book come out, They Can't Kill Us All, by Wesley Lowery, who's actually a Cleveland native. Okay, well, he was working for the Washington Post, and at the time, they started something called the Fatal Force. You can look that up. And they started tracking police killings, police shootings across the United States, and come to find out, the number was unreported by 60%. It was only coming out as a third. What they found is they were close to, and I think last year they breached the 1,000 shootings a year, fatal shootings. If that information, if those things are not integrated into any plan regarding reform, it's lipstick on a pig. We're in another training about, is our training failing recruits? And the presenter of that said, we keep saying de-escalation, de-escalation, de-escalation. It's not de-escalation. We need to teach officers non-escalation because it's often the officers that escalate. Look at how much your agency in your municipality pays out because of misconduct. How much is being paid out because of misconduct? And there was a trainer there too. My final statement on this is this. Everybody wants to be the authority. I get it, right? And the issue with that is you cannot push true reform scattered. There has to be a coalescing of those who want true reform to push reform and what it looks like. And if those things aren't being addressed, it's not true reform. So we have to come together, all the different associations, all the different, and that's the plan.